Good evening. My name is Rob Racine, and I'm a Public Information Officer with CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 3, currently assigned to the Dixie Fire. Thank you for joining us for this evening's Dixie Fire West Zone Community Briefing for August 20th, 2021. If you have any questions for our speakers this evening, please submit them in the comment section below, and we will address them with our speakers after their presentations. First, a look across California. Our state is under extreme drought conditions, and wildfires are burning rapidly and with extreme severity. More than 12,000 federal, state, tribal, and local firefighters are assigned to a dozen active, large wildfires across the state. So far this year, almost 1.5 million acres have burned, and that's an increase of 500,000 acres versus the same time frame last year. Over the last 37 days, the Dixie Fire has consumed 705,000 acres, and it currently stands at 35% contained. This remains the second largest wildfire and 14th most destructive wildfire in California history. Currently deployed to the incident, we have 5,734 personnel, 477 fire engines, 206 dozers, 92 crews, 19 helicopters, and it's affected 5 counties across Northern California, including Butte, Tehama, Plumas, Lassen, and Shasta. We currently have over 25,000 residents under evacuation orders and warnings, 281 of which are staying in 4 temporary shelters established around the fire. Damage inspectors are continuing to evaluate the burn area and perform damage assessments. For Plumas County, we have 1,150 homes or structures that have been destroyed, 79 structures that have been damaged, and I'm happy to say 1,555 that show no signs of damage and have been saved. In Lassen County, we have 52 structures that have been destroyed. 7 have shown signs of damage, and 137 have shown no signs of damage. In Tehama, 30 structures have been destroyed, 5 have been damaged, and 62 show no damage. Overall, for the Dixie Fire, 1,232 structures have been destroyed, 91 have been damaged, and the number I'm happy to report, 1,754 have shown no signs of damage and have been saved. It's important to remember that these inspections are ongoing and that the numbers are subject to change. Our first speaker this evening, I'd like to introduce Incident Meteorologist Joseph Goudsworth.
And good evening, everyone. It's great to be here once again. I do have some good news to talk about for once. I know I'm usually the bearer of bad news, but we're going to have to wait a day for that really, really good news. We're looking at another upper-level system working its way across the state as we speak. Past couple of days, we had northeast winds. We had some clean air. Well, that obviously has changed. Winds kicked around to the southwest earlier today, and we brought in that smoke from all the surrounding wildfires back into our area. We are going to keep those southwest winds in place overnight and for tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, a dry cold front is going to come through. The winds are still going to stay out of the southwest. However, they are going to pick up in speed, and we're looking at maybe 15 to 25 mile an hour winds. Do not be surprised if you see wind gusts around 30 to maybe 35 miles an hour, mainly in the higher terrain areas or in those normally wind-prone areas like valleys or where the winds line up properly with the topography. There is one very big limiting factor to all of this, and that is the smoke. So in this case, the smoke is actually helping by keeping a lid on those very strong winds. So if we can clear out any of the smoke, we'll see those winds pick up accordingly. If we stay really, really socked in with smoke, the winds might not be quite as strong as what we're looking at right now. So tomorrow is the critical day, and it all comes down to how much smoke we're actually going to see. And once we get past tomorrow, the weather pattern really quiets down. It's going to be warm. It's going to be not that windy at all. We're still going to see some dry air, but again, once we get past tomorrow's wind event, things are looking much, much better across the incident. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Fire Behavior Analyst Brian Newman.
Good evening. So I'm going to start over here in the southeast portion of the fire out in the Janesville area and just talk about some of the activity that we're seeing here and what we expect to see for tomorrow as well. So the fire did stand up in some of these areas today as the wind picked up a little bit this afternoon before the smoke came in. And we did see some activity on the flanks, both on the north and the south end, above and below Janesville and above Milford over here. And we expect that tomorrow, with that wind coming across, depending again on that smoke layer that we just heard about, we'll see some activity, especially down here in the very southeast portion of it, potentially push on the lines here a little bit and potentially challenge the lines. But overall, the activity for the most part is on the top of the escarpment, and there's a bit of activity just on the lines on either side of that, but most of it's over the escarpment itself. Moving over towards Susanville area and then the Hamilton Mountain, this is where we had a bit of activity today. There's different activities going on in terms of some firing, but also because of that wind that we had today, it came across the lake bed there and stoked up that fire a bit before the smoke came in. So activity was occurring in there, and we'll expect that we'll see some again there tomorrow, even just under a light breeze. A little bit of a thinning smoke here really allows the fire to get up and stand up and start to show itself. So I expect that that's going to occur again tomorrow, especially in some of the deeper pockets of heavy fuels and the steeper topography. Coming a little further west, over just north of Westwood, not a lot of heat showing in here, and I expect tomorrow that the activity that will occur in there will be just interior islands and pockets that are continuing to burn out. That's really heavy fuels in there, and these have been a bit before they've completely burned out or been mopped up. And so again, tomorrow we're going to be concerned about spot fires that could come out of there, but the amount of work that's been done in there is limited to those for the most part. But that is our concern as we move around the north end of the fire, just because of the direction that the wind is coming. So as it's generally coming from the southwest, it is allowing this activity that's up here in some of these areas that we saw today to continue to burn tomorrow, especially in these larger areas that have a lot more topography, a lot more rugged terrain. It's going to see that exposure to that wind that we just heard about. And so there is an opportunity for that activity to pop up and start showing some smoke columns up there. So overall, there's some chances for some spotting potential within the burn area and then just outside of it as well. But again, the limiting factor is that smoke. And so there's kind of a mixed message about wanting to have that smoke to keep that down. But that also limits our ability to put some aircraft in there. So as we move across the top over here, all the way over to the Lassen Park area, the part that has the most rugged terrain, highest elevations, it should pop out of the smoke tomorrow. And we'll see some smoke columns coming from that area just because of that height in the elevation and the heavy fuels that are burning in there. But again, some of that's sheltered from the wind on the backside of the topography and the backside of the mountains. So it shouldn't allow it to make any major runs, but there still will be some continuing activity to the north and to the east as that heavy terrain and heavy fuels continue to burn out. Coming down here to the Mill Creek area, that was hit today by that fresh wind that came in off the southwest, and so it did allow that to stand up a little bit in there, but again, it burned back into itself for the most part. So mostly it's on the flanks that are progressing just kind of left and right off of this finger here, but nothing that's really challenging the lines that have been built in there. And I expect that to continue again tomorrow as we see the breeze come up the canyon here. It shouldn't be threatening any of the lines that are already established in there. So that's the activity that you should expect to see in there. And the rest of the fires that comes over towards Chester and Almanor, really all that's left burning in there is just some smoldering pockets, some stump holes and some trees that are left burning well interior, nothing that's threatening any lines. And I expect to see that even tomorrow with the pickup in winds, that we shouldn't see anything that's going to challenge anything. And that kind of activity is what you're going to see in a lot of these other interior areas that have been burning or had burned quite a few weeks ago. So that's what's really going to be left with that. And really, like we talked about, the limiting factor is that smoke. So if we keep that smoke layer over the fire tomorrow, a lot of this activity is really going to be dampened down and moderated. Thank you.
And next, we'll stick over here at the map with Operations Section Chief Mark Brunton.
Good evening. Overall, we had a really good day with the fire as far as being able to get a lot of our control objectives completed. So I'll start basically through the middle of the fire, which is our Westwood sector. Basically, everything's looking really good around the communities on the West Shore. As the F-band noted, just some calls for service for those burning stump holes and such. pretty minimal. Our firing operation the other day on Highway 36 continues to hold very well, mopped up very well. So it creates a nice closed door from anything moving from the north into the peninsula, into Westwood, or into Hamilton Branch. So that's looking really good. Right here on the line between the east zone and the west zone, did have a slop over on Dyer Mountain yesterday. We were able to pick that up, and we're continuing to mop up stage there and continuing to strengthen that line within that area, so that our idea is to close the door from anything moving from the south to the north. Continuing over here where you see the Duffy Group, we did a firing operation a couple days ago starting at 36, so between drop point 276 and Willard, basically got that all fired in. It's got a lot of good depth in mopping that up. And then we were able to fire slightly more down 36, and then able to find a good place where we have a check line that we stopped it, and then go direct within that and continue to go direct. So that's had a lot of success, and just in the process of mopping that up and making sure that's cooled down, so that when we do get those slowly push winds, that we don't have anything that's going to challenge the line or influence anything that's on our unburned part in that clear branch. Right here around Susanville, I've gone direct on this line. It's in a continuous mop-up stage, and we also have our secondary lines opened up from previous fires. So that's looking really good. And then moving over to Janesville, continued work throughout there. That's right there in our zone break. So we've been assisting the East Zone with some resources, and then they've been continuing to put line in and strengthen on the south end. And then on our end, we've been able to continue to improve our line. We have a very large line going from the escarpment to 395, about 4 dozer blade wide. We've got hose in there. We've put retardant lines to strengthen that, and then they're mopping up any of the hot spots to protect any sort of push of the fire into Janesville. And then we have a very large contingency line across the top of the escarpment that we're continuing to construct so if fire does make any sort of turn or push, that we have something to box in and protect the community there. So that's looking really good as far as from our end in Janesville. Moving on to our Lassen sector north of 36, activity is over here on Mill Creek and the plateau. Looking really good. This little finger of fire down here, as of yesterday, we were able to go direct, put good control line around it. As FBAN said, it was with the wind push. Challenge, it didn't really challenge any of our lines. It did increase some activity on the flanks. However, our lines are holding very well. We also have a good secondary control line that to catch anything to push from the north down. But with our winds changing direction, that actually goes into our favor. And then we have a third line to isolate Mill Creek from any sort of western push of the fire. So that is doing very well, and we've got a lot of resources in there working on that. Into the park highway is holding as we've expected and wanted it to. A lot of various line construction throughout various parts of the park, where we found some good control lines and areas to use as control lines. So that's continuing. We haven't really had any movement, really significant movement within the park. A lot of that fire has been moderated, and it has some little runs here and there, but for the most part, it's going very well. Moving outside the park, we have our Division Quebec, and that has been a line that we've put in the past couple days preparing it, and we'll be conducting a firing operation there. The idea with that is to create a block so that we don't have any further northern intrusion of the fire, and to protect the Highway 44 corridor, the infrastructure, and reduce the spread of the fire. Romeo Tango is looking really good, heavy mop up, and just shaping up very nicely. So that's good to see, and we'll have a test from the wind pattern. Once we have that good wind test on the lines and it holds, which we expect it to, then we'll be seeing more of this black lining on the map that shows that we're very comfortable and confident to call that out in that part of the fire. Overall, the weather conditions the past couple days have been very conducive for us to fly our aircraft, both our fixed wing and our rotor wing, which we've done extensively in all parts of the fire. And today, with some of the smoke conditions, reduce the amount of we could fly, especially at the fixed wing. But however, with our rotor wing, we've been able to get the copters into a variety of these areas to help us out with our priorities and objectives. And we're going to continue to do so as we get into this next wind event. Once we get past that, as our IMET said, that we're going to get into a more calm pattern. And then we're going to be able to institute more of our priorities and objectives to accomplish our mission of controlling and putting out this fire. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce a video submitted by the Plumas County Sheriff's Department.
Good evening, I'm Carson Wingfield, the Incident Commander at the Plumas County Emergency Operations Center, giving you a quick update for today, Friday, August 20th, 2021. Currently, we're working to escort residents onto properties in Greenville over the next few days. We have not completely worked out the logistics of that and where and when that will happen. However, if you have contacted us to give us your name on one of the lists available either online or by phone, you can expect a code red and or a phone call from us to make arrangements to come in and view your property within the next couple of days. We know that this is going to be a very difficult time for a lot of residents, and our hearts go out to you. But we'll do everything we can to accommodate getting you in to see your homes and your property. There's been some good progress made on the fire over the last few days. Have had some favorable wind conditions that has allowed firefighters to make good contingency lines. Please stay vigilant and continue to watch and be careful in those zones because conditions are always changing. A local assistance center opened today at the old probation building, which is at 1446 East Main Street in Quincy. It is just east of the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. It's a great starting place for evacuees and residents affected by the Dixie fire and the Beckworth complex fire to begin making arrangements for the recovery process. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Next, I'd like to introduce at our podium, Lassen County Sheriff Dean Groudon.
Good evening, everyone. Dean Groudon, Lassen County Sheriff. I want to start off by reviewing evacuation warnings and orders. We're talking about that topic, and for up-to-date information related to Lassen County warnings and orders, I recommend you go to community.zonehaven.com. Again, community.zonehaven.com. That website, again, will give you real-time information about Lassen County evacuation warnings and orders. And there are no changes as of today related to those warnings and orders. I want to promise everybody we are working with the teams, our partner agencies, cooperators, to update plans so that we are ready to allow people to go home when the time is right. I want to discuss a couple things about Westwood, Clear Creek, Pinetown. Right now, the fire is burning along that Highway 36 corridor. That area is looking pretty good overall based on some fire operations and other things. But as you've heard earlier, the winds tomorrow will likely test some of that work that's been done, to protect our communities and stop further fire spread. We are working on power that would sustain the community when everyone does return home. We're staying in touch with Plumas County and officials over there related to the status of Seneca Hospital. If people do return to Westwood and somehow Highway 36 was forced to be closed, I'd want people to have ready access to a medical facility. So we're paying attention to and working with Seneca Hospital. In the Janesville-Milford area, the teams have done a lot of work. They've had tankers, dozers, hand crews, done a ton of work to protect Janesville-Milford, but there is still a lot of fire up over the ridge that causes some concern. And with the high winds tomorrow, a lot of that work may be tested. So right now, everyone agrees that it's not safe to repopulate, or change the order status for that Janesville area, warnings or orders in that Janesville-Milford area. Right now, animals or other critical items you might need in that Janesville area, if you call our dispatch center at 530-257-6121, we're doing everything we can to help people either recover their animals, feed their animals, take care of the animals, or if people need critical medications or medical devices, things of that sort, we're doing everything we can to help people out while it's safe. And I understand people are emotionally drained right now, patience is limited, and tempers are short. But we can't lose track of what really is important. And I just want to cover a couple examples from my day today that will help give perspective or keep things in perspective. I had the opportunity today to see some good friends who lost their home the other day. And in talking to them, you wouldn't know it, because really they're happy that everyone's safe, they're happy to be together, and thankful for what they do have. I also talked to a family who, I was on the side of the highway at a roadblock, a family pulled up, and they needed critical supplies from their home. They were convinced that their home was gone based on the footprint of the fire, but I was able to take them up to get their supplies, and they were overwhelmed to see their home was still there. And again, they were thankful to have what they have. In closing, I want to say I'm proud to be from Northeastern California and Lassen County. I know our people are resilient, and now is the time to show it. Thank you, and God bless.
Next, I'd like to introduce another pre-recorded video with Deputy Chandler Pay.
Good evening, my name is Deputy Chandler Pay. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Plumas County Sheriff's Office and Office of Emergency Services. We wanted to bring you a quick update tonight on some things we have going around the county. First, we want to clarify some repopulation questions that we receive. We receive several questions per day regarding repopulation. When can an individual get back to a certain area? And we just want to say that there's a lot of hazard mitigation that has to be done, which means we have to clean up stuff to make it safe. We have to take down hazard trees. We have to ensure that power lines are not an issue. We have to ensure that power can be restored to areas. So there's many things that go into the process of allowing repopulation, including making sure you have a safe route in and out of the area should we have to re-evacuate if you were to be repopulated. So again, we understand everybody wants to get back into their homes. We want you to get back into your homes, and we are working as quickly and efficiently as possible to get you back into your homes. Please know that. With the wind event this evening and into tomorrow, we are anticipating some possible changes to our evacuation orders. Those will come out later this evening possibly, and into tomorrow, and even maybe the next day depending on how the wind goes. So please continue to follow the plumascounty.us website under the Dixie Fire tab, and also the Plumas County Sheriff's Office Facebook page for those updates on any changes to our evacuation orders and warnings. Additionally, I want to remind everybody that we are continuing security patrols in all of the evacuated areas and warning areas. Our animal services are also providing help for any of the animals that were left in evacuated areas. So if you have an animal that was left behind in an evacuated area that you either need evacuated or you need fed, please contact Plumas County Animal Services at 530-283-3673. We want to thank the community for their patience in this incident. We know this has been a long, drawn-out incident, and we still have time ahead of us. So we want to thank you for your patience and for supporting us during this incident, and we also want to thank all of the personnel working on this incident. Thank you again for your time, and have a good night.
Our next speaker will be Federal Agency Representative Jay Lusher.
Good evening. We'd like to thank the more than 5,734 firefighters. They get up every day, put their boots on, go out to the line, and work very hard to control the areas to try and get you back into your homes. We also want to thank the hundreds of cooperators and support personnel that are working in the background to give them the information they need and the support they need to make that happen. Additionally, we'd like to thank all the friends, families, neighbors across Northeastern California who have provided support to their community and continue to support them through such a stressful time. It's these times where we need to reach out, help each other, and get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome up CAL FIRE Lassen Modoc Unit Chief, Scott Packwood.
Good evening, Scott Packwood, Unit Chief, Lassen Modoc. First, I'd just like to acknowledge all the good stuff that Sheriff Grouden said and empathize with the people that have been impacted in the county, on all the counties for that matter, that have lost structures. And just talk about the event the other night, Monday night, when the fire came down off Janesville grade and escarpment there. That fire burned in almost the exact footprint of the Eagle Fire in 1989 in just a matter of a couple hours. And that fire in 1989 took a couple days to burn that same footprint. When it came off the escarpment, there was a fire whirl that lasted in there for well over 30 to 45 minutes. And I thought that there was going to be upwards of 100 houses destroyed. And those resources got in there and went to work and saved multiple houses along Ponderosa, all the way from Janesville grade south. So unfortunately, we didn't save them all, but we did save a great number of homes in that area as the fire came down and impacted 395. So as you've heard from the IMET, the incident meteorologist, tomorrow's weather is not favorable as far as the fire goes, and it's another day of southwest winds. So the wind's going to be coming out of the southwest, pushing the fire towards the northeast, and we still have some critical areas, at least on the east side of the fire. One of those being the area of Fredonia Summit along Highway 36. Crews have been working extremely hard in there to contain and get that controlled in anticipation of this upcoming wind event. It's going to be assisted by the old fire scars, the Willard, the Cheney, the Creek, and the Sheep Fire. So they've done good work in there to button that up along the Roxy Pecanum Campground Road and back up Highway 36 to the west towards Fredonia Summit. So that is one of the critical areas that we're concerned with for that southwest wind tomorrow. And that was one of the questions, what part of the fire was threatening to the Susanville area. And that is the part of the fire that's going to be the most threat to Susanville itself. As that wind blows out of the southwest, it funnels down that Highway 36 corridor down through Susan River drainage, right down into town. So we'll be focusing on that tomorrow as one of the key areas, as well as the Janesville area. They're still working hard on establishing that line, as Operations Chief Brunton explained. They do have line established along the Janesville grade down to the bottom of the escarpment and up across the top, back up towards Thompson Peak. So those are two of the critical areas of concern on the Susanville side of the fire, as well as all the other areas that are concerned. And Genesee Valley still have some active firefighting going on over there as we speak tonight. And there's resources over there that Incident Commander C will talk about. So as Sheriff Grouden said, we empathize with all of you that have been impacted by the fire. And we're working diligently to get this thing put out. Crews are working extremely hard, and we keep having these wind events that are going to be challenging us. But after tomorrow, we have favorable wind conditions for the next several days, and we should be doing a lot better progress once we get past tomorrow. So if you're upwind to the northeast of the fire tomorrow, be heads up, pay attention, listen for changes in evacuation warnings and orders. Prepare if you haven't already as best you can, and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. For our final speaker this evening, I'd like to introduce Incident Commander Billy C.
Yeah, good evening. Obviously, today we find there are challenges and successes. The wind patterns and the weather patterns that we've been dealing with over the last 38 days have been extremely difficult on the firefighters. Obviously, we have a lot of issues. Obviously, we have a lot of issues related to the wind and how it pushes the fire around. Tomorrow's not going to be an exception. We have the southwest wind pattern with heavy gusts, 20, 25 miles an hour. that's going to challenge some of our containment lines that we have in place right now. We have those lines staffed, and we will brief our firefighters and prepare to have surge forces to push into any areas that become active and may impact any communities. There's a lot of questions related to the western side of the fire, the Mineral area, Mill Creek, Deer Creek, Battle Creek area. That fire is spotted just below Highway 36. We've been aggressive on keeping it out of the Mill Creek drainage over there and been getting containment lines on that. With the change in the weather and the wind direction, that's going to help those firefighters out tomorrow, gain additional ground and control efforts in there. Earlier this afternoon, as the winds picked up in the east zone, we sent 25 engines down to the Genesee Valley area to assist the east zone with structure protection. Those firefighters are actively engaged in protecting those communities down there right now, assisting our partners in the East Zone. This is a collaborative effort. We're moving resources around on this incident based on fire conditions and where it needs to be at. This is a combined effort between all the agency and firefighters on this incident. It's not a dividing line per se that we're keeping resources in the west and keeping resources in the east. We're utilizing all resources where it's best, using that right tool at the right time at the right place. So we're in constant communication and coordination between all the members, between the East Zone and West Zone, and we continue to surge those forces where necessary to protect all of your property as much as possible. I want to close by, there's several questions coming in. We're going to have a handful of answers for you from our speakers tonight, and we're going to do our due diligence to answer all your needs that you're sending in to us. Obviously, we're in for some rough weather over the next 24 hours. Once we get through that, there's supposed to be a calming trend, and that's going to give our firefighters a little break in the weather and hopefully a little break in the fire conditions, and we're going to be able to gain some additional ground and protect your community that you live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. To answer our first round of questions, I'd like to invite up Fire Behavior Analyst, Brian Newman.
Okay, so what the question I just received was how do we monitor hotspots? So we monitor hotspots obviously with the crews that are on the ground on the line. They're keeping their eyes on the green, or what we call the green is the unburned side, and being aware of that and just monitoring that as it's coming along. And then from there, the next level of that is our aerial assets, whether it's our air tactical group supervisor, fixed wing plane, or the helicopters that are overhead. And then all throughout the day, at multiple times a day, we have an overflight of a plane that does infrared monitoring. So they monitor and scan the entire fire and give us the active perimeter so we know how large the fire is, where it's grown to, but also they identify any hot spots that occur both in and outside the perimeter. And we use that to be able to give us an idea of the fire's growth and also really where those spot fires may be that we can't necessarily see because of the smoke, or an area that is further from where there's crews on the ground. And then beyond that, there's also satellites that are overflying, and they're geosynchronous over the earth, and they give us a view of the hot spots in a gridded pattern that we use to be able to identify where those hot spots are as well. And we input all of those into multiple systems that we use for our fire behavior modeling and also for our monitoring, and be able to give us some projections. So hopefully that answered the questions for that.
Thank you, Chief. To answer our next questions, I'll introduce, Lassen County Sheriff, Dean Groudon.
All right, the question I have is, I'm in Janesville and I can get my mail, but not my dog. I'm not giving my key to a stranger to feed. So as I said earlier, we want to help people with their animals. My preference is to get those animals out of that mandatory evacuation and reunite them with their owners. So whoever submitted that question, I'd appreciate it if you give us about 10 minutes or so. I'll call our dispatch center and they'll be expecting your call. And what we can do is we can have you meet a deputy somewhere, and as long as the area where your home's located isn't an immediate danger, that deputy can drive you to your home and help you recover your dog. And those are the types of things we're trying to do. But if we bring people in for dogs, for medications, any kind of animal, you know, we need to go in there in an efficient manner, get your animals for you, and move back out of that mandatory evacuation zone. And again, I appreciate everybody's cooperation and support, and let's just keep sticking together. Thank you.
Answering our next questions will be Operations Section Chief Mark Brunton.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions. One is going to be some questions regarding a number of communities. So I'll go community by community. But first one is a question about the use of aircraft during night operations. That's a very long-winded conversation that I'll try to keep it and boil it down the best I can. In general, we don't fly operations at night as far as the water dropping and the air, the retardant dropping for a variety of reasons. It's extremely hazardous even during the day. Smoke conditions and the low light conditions would add to that. And so in general, we just don't do that. In Southern California, there are some helicopters that are qualified to do night missions, but you're talking a completely different fuel model, not timber, completely different topography. It's not an automatic that they will fly the missions based on the safety considerations. That is the last word by the pilot. So it's a very complex situation, complex decision-making process, and something that is extremely rarely done. And when you look at the risk versus benefit of it, it's not really proven to be extremely beneficial. Typically, when you do see that in the fires in Southern California and that sort of thing, it's during an initial attack phase, during an extreme life safety phase. So it's something that is typically not done, although we are evolving through technology and so forth, that eventually will be there in coming years, especially with the new aircraft that the helicopters that CAL FIRE has, but it's something that we're going to see in the future. So for right now, as far as the airdrop from retardant and water dropping, we don't have that capability available to us. However, we do have some night flying capability that we are utilizing and we have been utilizing on this incident. One of which is using UAS, or basically a drone for lack of a better term. We've been using that every evening for the past almost week now here in our sector. And that's been a very good reconnaissance tool so that whenever we're doing any operations, they can stay above those operations. They can tell us where hot spots are. They can tell us where there's spot fires. And we've utilized that extensively over the past number of meetings, and it has come in extremely beneficial. We've been able to pick up spot fires very quickly and jump on those before they could get any steam to them. So we've been utilizing that. Our firing burn operation in Quebec that we're going to do this evening, we have a UAS that will be on station over that for the just that as a lookout, if you will. We are also going to utilize a drone or UAS asset that will actually drop specialty ping pong balls, sort of material that will light our fire for us for the firing operation, and it's something that's been in play and used for quite a while. The federal agencies, our partners in the East Zone, have been utilizing it, and so it's a great tool, and we can do a lot of good work and be very expedient and very, just it brings a whole new level to our operation that it makes it efficient. So we're going to be utilizing that this evening as well. So there are assets we'll use at night. Also this evening, we're going to be utilizing a fixed wing asset that has on board not only the IR capabilities to be able to see through smoke and to see in the dark, but also has what we call an air tactical group supervisor. And what an air tactical group supervisor is that person in the aircraft, much like our aircraft that we fly during the day, that has a person that is specially trained to conduct not only the reconnaissance elements of it and the aerial supervision for all the aircraft. So it's a huge asset to have. So we're going to have a multi-layered air asset tonight in the UAS and the fixed wing asset to assist us with our operations, not only just the firing operation, but all the other operations ongoing this evening. So that's as far as aircraft at night, that's what we're utilizing and the tools we have available. Moving on to a long list of communities that we have questions on, and I'll just kind of hit this and briefly just kind of give you an update. And it's kind of all over the board. So one of the ones obviously very concerning is near the Susanville area. This will include the Cheney Creek drainage, Gold Run, Susanville proper, and that's pretty much the ones there. So in this area, basically we're talking this area. Done a burn operation past couple days on Highway 36. That's holding. That's doing very nicely. So that's going to protect the spread to the north. We've been direct on this piece of line here that was threatening the community a number of days ago. It's got line on it, direct line. It's got contingency line around it. It's in a heavy mop-up phase. So although things show red on the map, it doesn't mean that you have a flaming front that is coming at you that is dangerous. It basically means that we don't have it fully black yet because we don't have it fully, completely extinguished, no hot spots over a period of days. That's what that means. So even though you see red on the map, it doesn't mean that there's a flaming front coming down on the town. We have a lot of control lines in here. We have recognized early on when we had the earlier wind events regarding the Susan River and the Cheney Creek drainage that those funnel right into the community. We jumped on that. We had plans in place. And so that's the fruits of the labor there, is that we've been able to stop that spread, and we are maintaining and holding it. And then with the wind that we will be seeing, it will have an effect on it. However, we are very confident that that's going to hold. We have a lot of resources in there, so we're comfortable with that and that holding, and feel that should be a non-factor for this coming wind. So that's that. Also in that general area is the Lake Forest area. Lake Forest area has not had any impact from fire. However, with the hog fire last year that threatened that community, people I'm sure are very concerned. Also from where that community sits, they kind of have a front row seat as to what's going on across the way. But at this point, there's no direct threat to that community. We're very comfortable with there. We also have our control lines from the hog fire last year that were set to protect that community, and we can utilize those as well. So we're very comfortable that community is going to do just fine and not have an impact. Let me see, another question moving over towards the area here in our Lassen sector towards Mineral and Child's Meadow. So you did see this bit of fire on the map here. As I explained earlier, we have direct line on that. We've got containment lines and secondary lines that have been established and are being established, and even a tertiary line. So that's to protect any further incursion of the fire into the Mill Creek drainage. Child's Meadow did have some impact on it. However, they were able to do some good stops around that area. Structures are still standing. There have been some damage, and our damage inspection teams are looking at those, so we don't have an exact count right now of any that were destroyed or damaged. However, I do know from firsthand accounts of people that our personnel out on the ground, there were a number that were saved. So I do know that for a fact, and they put in a lot of hard work in this area, and with the winds coming, it really is going to push back onto itself. So that's a good thing as far as what the weather is expected to do, and I feel very strongly we're going to be able to hold that line there. And then one other one, Janesville. So the Janesville grade, the line that was put in there 2 days ago, the dozer line and the retardant lines, that's paralleling that Janesville grade. And so we feel that we have a very good buffer in there. We have a lot of resources in the Janesville area and working on that piece of line, mopping that up, so that we have a good buffer and good line of defense against any incursion of fire into Janesville. So that will continue to be heavily protected, and resources in there over the next number of days. So we're very comfortable with that piece of line. And then the final one I was given is basically the Shasta Hat Creek Old Station to the north. So we have our burn operation in Quebec this evening. What that's going to once that does it, it creates a nice buffer or stop and closes the door to any incursion of fire to the north, that could impact not only the Highway 44 corridor, but could also push, based on some wind patterns, towards Old Station. So that's, again, going to be another block for us from the fire push north. And also over the next few days, we are going to be looking at establishing contingency lines to the north of the park, outside of the park boundary, to protect Old Station and any further movement if the fire were to get outside the park boundaries into Shasta County. So we're going to be setting up a contingency sector for that, for the Shasta County area. And we have people that we're putting in that are actually work in that unit and have intimate knowledge of that area. And then looking at opening up some of the old fire lines that are existent currently that we can use for the protection of any sort of movement to the north and towards Old Station.
Thank you, Chief. For our viewers that want more information about the UAS program that was mentioned by Chief Brunton, we do actually have a video that was produced early on in the Dixie fire that we'll go ahead and share to the top of the news feed of the Lassen Modoc page. Thank you to all of our speakers as well. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our next meeting will be scheduled for Sunday, August 22nd at 7 p.m. It'll be streamed live here on Facebook of the Lassen Modoc page, as well as on YouTube. With that, thank you, good night, and be safe.